Hi, I'm Taylor Mayde, and from 2006 to 2014, I was part of Columbus, Ohio's premier drag king troupe, the Royal Renegades. For 8 years, I performed as male, female, and non-binary characters, stage managed, and co-produced over 30 drag shows. Through drag, I performed at bars and venues all over the country, and also made some incredible friends along the way. Together, we're Revisiting the Spotlight, a podcast recorded at Boxland Media where I connect with performers from my past to learn about their journey through the world of drag. Today we're talking with Gavin Danger. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, drag and Gavin, I think that is the most synonymous. Those are the two most synonymous words ever.
It's very fascinating. Like, I think in hindsight, had I known performing could have been a viable career where I actually went into theater and made money doing it,
Right.
I think I might have, but I didn't really find it till much later in life. I had seen what people consider drag kings now. At the time, they called themselves male illusionists. In '93, at a very small bar in, I want to say it was either Memphis, Tennessee, or Jacksonville, Florida. It was right when I was getting out of the military, and I saw these two people perform. They did a duet, and I was just like, "Oh my God, I totally want to do that." And then just never found an opportunity to do it until I moved to Columbus, and Johnny Kingpin and Reardon Kingsdale had started the Royal Renegades, and Johnny Kingpin was moving to Philadelphia actually, and asked me if, because I had said, "Oh, if," because I'd been friends with them, and I was like, "If you ever want another performer to do backup or something, like I really want to get into performing." And Johnny had approached me and was just like, "Will you MC my going away show?" And I was just like, I am terrified of public speaking, but yeah, like if this is my foot in the door, this is what we'll do, right? And so I did that, and I did horribly. I knocked shit off the stage. My stutter came out. It was just bad, and I was co-hosting with someone, a queen that is no longer with us, but she just kept going, is this guy? Like, what are you doing? You're just like knocking shit off the stage. And I was just like a hot mess. I was just like so nervous and a hot mess. But after that, I realized that talking was not my forte, but lip syncing I could do, very well. And not like, once the music started, the nerves all sort of melted away. And yeah.
That's so funny that you mentioned the stuttering part because when I was younger, I had an awful stutter. And it still sometimes comes out a little bit, but that's one of the reasons why I gave up doing plays where I had to talk because my nerves would get the best of me and I would start stuttering. And I thought, oh, I can do drag where I just lip sync the words and I don't have to worry about a stutter at all.
Yeah, and like after I realized that, and now it's a little bit easier to talk on the mic depending on where I am and what sort of event it is for. But I mean, I didn't know anybody. Like, I knew like 5 people in Columbus at the time, and it was a hot mess. But I found my niche with the Royal Renegades, and sort of didn't look back after that. Like, after I figured out that talking on the mic was not my forte, but I really enjoyed lip syncing and dancing and doing collaborations with people.
How did you come up with the name Gavin Danger?
You know, for a long time I only had a first name, and it was just Gavin. And I how I came up with that name is I wrote down a bunch of masculine names that I liked, and I had my friends vote on it.
Okay.
And nobody liked Gavin. And I was just like, I think that's the one I like the most. I think that That's what I'm gonna go by. And it wasn't until I think I was performing for a couple years, and I woke up from a nap, and I remember I was dating Heather at the time, and I was like, I know what I want my last name to be. I want it to be Danger. And she was like, Gavin Danger, Gavin Danger, Gavin Danger. I approve.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then that's just what it was.
You've always been drawn to pirates and the pirate life. So I feel like danger kind of goes along with that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it was, I'd known a couple performers that didn't have last names and still don't have last names till this
Mhm.
day, like Flair from Toronto.
Right.
But they have like a longer name. It's like Drag King Flair, right? It's
Hmm.
not uh and I knew a couple other performers at the time that just had a name, and I was just like, oh, I was so worried that I was gonna pick a name that I would never be able to change. Like once you built that brand of who you are as a performer, I was worried that I would be stuck with something that I didn't like. And so I sort of
Right.
took my time picking it. But yeah.
Yeah. My
I,
drag name is Taylor Mayde, and I don't know anything about sports. And I had no idea that it was a golf company or a golf brand or something. And by the time I learned about it, I was like, I've already done 2 shows under this name. Oh well, and just stayed with Taylor Mayde.
yeah, yeah. How did you come up with your name?
Well, I wanted something androgynous. So Taylor was that, and then for the last name, like Taylor Made is very common. Um,
Yeah,
and I like to make my own props and just make something. And so I thought, like, oh, kind of like a seamstress in a way, or so I
yeah,
make things. So it's Taylor made this, but
yeah,
no one got it.
yeah.
No one but me.
I just remember about props, you were like, when I'm done with it, I'm just done with it.
I do. I completely throw everything
You're just
away.
like, it's gone. I was like, but what if we want to do the number again? I'll get a new one.
Yep. I hate taking things back to my car, like loading things back into my car. So I'm like, nope, I'll just
Yeah,
make it again. It's fine.
yeah, yeah.
So for your Gavin Danger numbers, did you create a character for each song that you did, or were you always Gavin Danger, whoever that is?
Well, oftentimes now I have a more nuanced approach to gender expression in general. And when I started, I knew that I wanted to be a gender expressionist of some sort.
Mhm.
And for a lack of a better term, and easy to explain to someone what the opposite of a drag queen is, right? Is
Right.
a drag king. And I think for me, I never really, there are certain labels that sort of just never really resonated with me, and drag king was one of them. And I think that's why I put gender expressionist on all my business cards and all of my marketing.
Hmm.
And I really, because of what I feel like my persona is just a hyper extension of who I am as my muggle life, right?
Hmm.
It's just like when I get in drag, I just, it's just like really amped up, and like I have like an extreme amount of confidence when I'm performing that, you know, comes in waves when I'm not performing, right?
Right, right.
And I think for me, w- the only things that I really thought about was my character. I didn't want to be perpetuate misogyny or toxic masculinity. Like I wanted
Mhm.
to be the masculinity that I wish existed in the world.
Right.
And um, I think that really comes from who I came up under, like Heidi and Julie and Luster and all of these people that had started, His Kings and the IDKE and things like that, that were all queer theory, feminist, women's studies, gender studies majors
Hmm.
that sort of kept that in check within the groups of like, oh, question why you're doing what you're doing. Not that you can't do it, but know why you're doing it. Like if you're doing something to intentionally push buttons, know why you're doing it and be able to argue why you're doing it.
Right.
Right. And so when I was thinking about my character and my character development, I just knew that I knew what I didn't want to do, but
Hmm.
I didn't really set out to fill the niche that I did, right? Like
Yeah.
I guess you would call my persona like more of a classic crooner kind of like smooth kind of performance or performer, but it isn't something that it was just sort of something that I landed in. And
Hmm.
that's the lane that I felt comfortable in, right? Now, have I ever stepped out of that? Sure. Like when we did Otto Titslinger, like I
Hmm.
played the villain, and like that was comical. Or when I did Dick in a Box with Jess, or like there's there's times that I've stepped out of that. That isn't where I feel the most comfortable.
Hmm.
It's not that I won't do it. It's just that's not the thing. Like when I hear music, I'm like, oh, this would be a Gavin Danger song. Or my nieces will be like, they'll text me something. Did you hear this song? This is a Gavin Danger song. And there is a specific, I don't know, specific feel to a song that is like, oh, that
Hmm.
really resonates with me, either the beat or the lyrics or something like that.
Yeah.
That also is um something that is going to encapsulate the things that I just spoke about like not perpetuating or not, appropriating someone else's culture, or like how do you do a performer, how do you do a performance of someone and not do those things, right? And
Right.
so like
Right.
when I hear them, I'm like, oh, this could work, right?
Yeah. I feel like you and I, we've performed in so many numbers together, and which I have loved all the like all of them. I remember one show where you started with a full head of hair, and by the end of the show, you did not have any hair.
I remember that was I was playing a priest in the last number.
Hmm.
I did a Violent Femme song first because I had a blue mohawk,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
right? I had a blue mohawk, and then I was like, I don't think this is gonna go well with the priest being a priest. And I was the priest in someone else. I was a priest in Jax's number, I think.
Hmm.
I forget the song that they were doing, but yeah, um I committed. I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna shave my head in between acts, and nobody's even gonna notice. And everybody was just like, "Oh my God, what did you do?"
Yeah. I think going from a blue mohawk to nothing in a matter of 5 minutes, people are going to be like, there's something different about you.
I was still working at the coffee table then, and my regulars were just like, I want you to grow the blue mohawk." And I was like, "Well, it doesn't grow that way, but
Yeah.
I could. I can see what I can do."
For the numbers that you chose to do, you you did a lot of like entertaining, and you would have like stories and dance to it. Were there ever times that you went political with your pieces?
Yeah, there there used to be this organization that sometimes we would perform with, or that so when I'm thinking about songs and where I'm performing, I think about that as like a holistic thing. So like if I was performing at Wall Street, I wanted to pick something that was pretty popular, pretty
Mhm.
contemporary, something that wasn't that a lot of the audience was gonna resonate with, right? Or
Right.
like they might not love the song, but they would know it, right? But when I was doing fundraisers or one-offs for organizations, like there was this organization called Qualia that I performed for,
Hmm.
that I remember doing political numbers. I remember doing the song What It's Like. Um, You know, the song is like, we've all seen a man at the liquor store begging for
Mhm.
some change,
Yeah.
like that one.
Mhm.
I did it as a political piece with about pro-choice,
Okay.
because there's a part in there about a woman having to have an abortion,
Mhm.
or not having to, but like going to have an abortion, and like you don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
So there have been numbers like that, or um number like when it's not like a big super popular show, or like those one-offs, or like
Right.
a fundraiser, I'll do something a little bit more charged in that political realm for
Mhm.
sure. um because it's either I'm doing it for free and it's really irrelevant, you
Yeah.
know. uh like, as long as I'm still entertaining, like that's what I was hired to do, or like volunteered to do.
Mhm.
But I feel like a lot of times when we would be performing at Wall Street, or, you know, East Village or somewhere like that,
Mhm.
one of the goals is to, because we weren't getting paid a lot of money to perform,
Right.
was to give as many tips as you could, right? And
Right.
so I found the formula for that was doing popular songs that resonated with people, that were contemporary and not, kind of sort of middle of the road, not offensive, not pushing any buttons, but
Mhm.
not like, but still had like some substance to it.
Yeah. I remember the stage at Wall Street. You performed on both stages at Wall Street, the arrow and then the toilet bowl, basically.
Yeah.
So the um the arrow at Wall Street was perfect to get tips because like you were so in the audience and they were and usually shows at Wall Street, they were packed. Like we were sold
Yeah.
out. So it was standing room only, and even though people bought tables around the stage, people were still standing there. And it was so great just going down that catwalk and seeing people with their dollar bills. And like I kind of
Yeah.
felt bad like taking it. And I learned from you how to take tips from people. Because before I would just take it and like immediately toss it because I didn't know what to do with it. And you were like, no, 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 hold it to show appreciation. And I was like, oh, okay.
I forget, someone else taught me that, was just like, now you like sometimes I would take it and I would like hold their hand as I'm taking the money and look
Mhm.
at them to like acknowledge, like, thank you for tipping me, right?
Yeah.
But also there's times when I take a bunch of money and I like to throw it up and like make it rain on me. I just think it creates a really interesting visual when you're performing, because they all fall at like different paces and it looks
Hmm.
really cool in pictures and on video. Um, but I've seen so many people that just take tips and they're just like, it's like, they don't even really care about the tips, right?
Yeah.
If you watch a burlesque performer, or someone who is an exotic dancer, uh, uh, sex worker, or someone in that realm, right?
Hmm.
Strip clubs, you'll see how they get people to give them money,
Yeah.
right? They look at them and they make them feel like they're the only person there, right? And then
Right.
people are just like,
Make it rain.
take it all, take
You're
all my
showing me
money.
attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the many things that I admire about you as a person and as a performer is the way that you are able to engage the audience and bring the audience into the performance with you.
It is definitely a skill that I have had to hone a little bit, because in the beginning it was not like that. It was just like, I think in the beginning you're just all sort of fumbling about trying to figure out where
Mhm.
your comfort zone is.
Right.
And once I found that comfort zone and that stride, it was there there's just something, there's like a switch that goes on when the music starts. Up
Mhm.
until then, I'm kind of like a babbling idiot, and that's why like day of shows, like Laura would take care of everything, because I was like,
Uh-huh.
I can do all the planning up till here, but like once I start getting into drag, I can't remember people's names. Like, so if
Mhm.
like anybody talks to me before I performed,
Yeah.
I forget their names. It's just like, there's like an memory eraser that happens. And
Right.
so I'd be like, go find Laura. Laura is the
Mhm.
person you need to talk to. But like once the music starts and there's a switch that flips, that I
Mhm.
don't know, it's just a whole different
Mhm.
person, which is interesting because it never really dawned on me like when I was younger, when I would dress up for like Halloween or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I didn't feel the same way. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's just sort of if it has to do with that element of gender expression itself
Mhm.
or what is different about drag versus just dressing up for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
There's something different, but I haven't really been able to like pinpoint it yet.
So you're a producer of shows and a performer. And most of the time you do both. You produce the show and you perform in it. Is there one that you like better than the other?
I would say performing
Mhm.
I like better. Um, but I also feel like I'm really good at producing shows and producing shows that are not only fun for the performers but fun for the audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that we've probably seen this more times than not. Like sometimes it can be fun for the performers but not really fun for the audience or vice versa.
Yeah.
Like I've seen shows where it was just like a bunch of friends performing and it was just more about them performing than it was
Mhm.
about entertaining the audience, right?
Yeah.
And then I've seen other shows that it's like the opposite. But it is I think that I fell into producing sort of out of a need that I was it was in the Renegades. So I started with the Renegades with their second show, and that was
Mhm.
Johnny Kingpin's Going Away show. And all of the people that were in the group had been in His Kings or had been performers elsewhere, right?
Right.
And they all were tired. And I was new and so excited, right?
Oh, fresh meat, yes.
And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And they're just like, we just want to perform. You just tell us where to come. I mean, with the exception, like Jax was super involved. But like Heidi and Julie and some of those folks that have been around for a while, they're just like, we just want to perform. We don't want
Yeah.
to deal with any of the politics of it. We don't want to deal with any of the stuff. Of course, we'll help you promote, but
Mhm.
they didn't really want to do the ins and outs of producing. And I was just like, oh,
Right.
okay. I'm good at organizing things. Let me give this a shot. And then it just sort of snowballed into that as it's like, they're like, you're really good at this. Continue.
Can please do that all. Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like almost everything that I learned about producing shows came from you, kind of following the Gavin Danger guide to drag shows. And you, I don't know if this started with you, but you brought in like selling tables prior to the show starting and decorating the tables and having themes to the show instead of it just being an all out variety show. Yes, it's a variety show, but we have a theme to it now.
Yeah, I mean, Wall Street did have some shows that like Marianne Brandt did their Christmas special and they did sell all of the tables for those. But
Hmm.
I just sort of sort of expanded on that model because I also wanted to create an experience in like there should be something a little bit elevated if you're getting a table,
Yeah.
right? If you're paying a premium to sit there just so you can have a seat, like you could show up early and get the seat, like whatever, right?
Hmm.
So I felt like there should be something a little bit elevated and there should be decorations in there. I feel like themes, even when they're loosely held, make a more cohesive show.
Right.
And there's an expectation that the audience and the performers have that there's going to be something staying in these lanes of this theme, right?
Hmm.
um but yeah, I loved decorating the tables and coming up with the concepts and we would snowball ideas about like next things, what's coming up next. And I had built a lot of relationships in Columbus with people like Zen Genius and other people that the majority of the stuff was donated. I just had to go pick it up and
Okay.
drop it off, right?
Mhm.
So like all the tablecloths that we had, all of the lights or like the fake candles, there's some of the decorations.
Yeah.
Now there were some times we would have to buy things, but a lot of times I would be like, "Hey, I need these kinds of things. Do you have those in your repertoire?" Because they did like all kinds of events.
Mhm.
And so we would just basically roll up, be able to go like shopping per se,
Yeah.
and be like, I need enough decorations for 10 tables or whatever.
Mhm.
But the biggest event, decoration wise, was the carnival show.
Yes. Yeah.
And that one was a collaboration with Wall Street. I was just like, Scott, this is my vision. Can we
Mhm.
make it happen?
Yeah.
And he was just like, I got you. He's like, we're gonna take down the disco ball and we're gonna hang fabric and it's gonna hang down and like do this thing and it's gonna create this big top and da 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 da.
Mhm.
I was like, yes,
Yeah.
that's what I want.
Yeah.
And then, it was up to us as, me as a producer, and Laura helped a little bit, and some other people were involved that sort of helped get performers, but I think that show I mainly did by myself.
Mhm.
Um, Mason might have been involved a little bit. I can't remember. Um, but I remember getting, I think the circus people was Christina Isabel, but I think their circus company was called Hijinks.
Mhm.
So the stilt walkers that came in and the people juggling and doing the poi spinning, like they all were in their circus.
Yeah.
And so I remember paying them, but also again, I think they did most of it at a very steep discount, if not free.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times we didn't have a lot of money. We were going based on what, I would guarantee money, so
Mhm.
much money to the performers, but if we didn't get it out of the door, it was coming out of my bank account.
Yeah.
And anything that was above and beyond that what was guaranteed was split amongst the performers
Mhm.
evenly.
Yeah.
So, and that show just happened to be obscenely attended. I remember Scott was just like, it was the one and only time Scott ever came to me and it's like, you cannot start the show. There are too many people waiting in line.
What a
He was like,
wonderful feeling. Yeah.
it's around the block. He goes, we can't start the show. And I was just like, we're already 10 minutes late. Like, I don't do drag time. And he was just like, please just give it 30 minutes. He goes, because there's people around the block and we
Yeah.
can't get them in fast enough.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
And Wall Street's max capacity was what, like 400 people?
Yeah.
Yeah. Way to
It was
go. That's
400. I think it was like 410 was the fire code or something like that.
okay. Even as a producer, I know the thought that you put behind every single detail, even the way that each song was in the lineup to like be able to tell a story that fit with that theme.
Yeah, I remember sitting, it's one of the reasons why I really tried to get performers to turn in their music at least 2 weeks in advance
Mhm.
so that I could listen to the songs, put them together in a way that sort of flowed nicely.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a bunch of slow songs and then a bunch of fast songs, or and it was like putting together a puzzle, right?
Right.
This really intricate puzzle of like, because most people were performing in at least two numbers.
Mhm.
And so you had to give them enough time to be separated, and you had to, so they could get changed into their next character, right? And then you had to, if they were like a random person in someone else's act, then you had to like know all this other
Yeah.
stuff. And so there was a lot of thought and a lot of consideration that went into like some people wanted to be in the first half and then they could go home. Like
Mhm.
Mark Martin was just like, put me in the first half. I want to be in bed by the time you guys are wrapping up, right?
Yes.
And so there was like all of these things to consider, and like some people would be like, I only went in the second half. Like I know my friends are not going to roll in until about halfway through the show, and
Mhm.
so there was like this sort of like little dance of like listening to the music, making like putting out, like I would put down who was in what, and then do like this jigsaw puzzle
Yeah.
of putting together the show, and then listening to it. And if I didn't like the way it flowed, I would try to rearrange something and see if it still worked.
Mhm.
And so there was a lot of time and energy that went into that, but I feel like that's one of the reasons why our productions were good.
Yeah. You've traveled a lot doing drag.
A good bit, a good bit.
A
I'm
good
getting
bit.
ready to travel actually. I'm going to be performing in Michigan
Oh,
with
nice.
at it's Go Girl Saugatuck.
Okay.
Um it's I won't say it's technically a women's event, but by women I mean just no cis men,
Mhm. Okay. Yeah.
right?
Right.
Um and so it's put on by Mimi Gonzalez and Tamale, and I will be performing
Mhm.
there. We performed there a couple years ago, and it's really fun. It's an outside event. It's a 3-day weekend. It's like all
Mhm.
kinds of shenanigans, and it's just really cool. It's on Lake Michigan. It's on the western side of Michigan,
Okay.
and it's this cool little queer town called Saugatuck that um, they have this event.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've performed all over the country. And I have performed in Europe when I did my study abroad, which was super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it different performing in a different country?
It was different, especially in how I went about it, because a lot of the people there, they spoke English, but they might not have been super proficient in English. So when I chose my songs, I had to make sure that I chose ones that they've heard before.
Yeah.
Um, because I don't, like, I asked my buddy Andy, who got me hooked up with this, to perform in Ljubljana. I was just like, what style of music do y'all listen to? And they're like Serbian national music. And I was just like, I don't know if I can learn a Serbian national song in the time that I got, but tell me some artists that come, because it's when artists travel, they travel in little areas, like, they'll go to the United Kingdom and
Mhm.
do concerts. They'll go on the West Coast here and do concerts. They're not usually jumping around. There's a tour called the Balkan Tour, which is through like where Yugoslavia used to be, where Slovenia, like they
Mhm.
go through kind of like that Eastern European corridor.
Mhm.
And I was like, what kind of artists do you get that come through here? Like if I give you some songs and you tell me if people would know these songs. So I
Yeah.
ended up doing an Elvis song because I was like, everybody's got to know
Everybody.
Elvis, right?
Right. Right.
And then I did a Jason Mraz song because he was super popular at the time, and they did get to hear a lot of his music.
Mhm.
And I believe that he had gone on tour through there.
Yeah.
Um, so that was interesting, but like I didn't understand what anybody was saying. Everybody was speaking Slovenian. And even when they introduced me, that like I couldn't understand what they said. All I heard was American drag king Gavin Danger.
That's it.
That's all I got. I was on the news, I was in a paper, I was in this magazine, like, and I was just like, Andy, can you translate all any of this for me? Because I don't know what it says. And they were like, yeah. And they were just like, all I could understand was American drag king Gavin
Mhm.
Danger. But
Yeah.
it was really cool. There was a castle in the background with a rainbow flag on it.
Mhm.
It was so cool.
I remember the only outside of US that I've performed in at is Vancouver. And I remember how they tip. Well, they didn't really tip because their currency, like we get dollar bills, $2, whatever, and it's actually like paper that you can throw on stage and it's fine. No one will get
Yeah.
hurt. But Canadian money, they have what, toonies? Is that what it's called? The they're
They have a loonie and a toonie, which is a $1 and a $2 coin,
yeah, that you can't
and
throw on stage.
you can't be pelting people with coins, and they're heavy coin. They're not light coins. So,
Yeah.
um, I've seen performers wear garter belts with little, like little pouches on them that
Mhm.
people just put those in. I was
Okay.
like, oh, I never thought about that, but
Yeah.
I see where you're going.
Well, if I could go back in time, I think I would bring a little pouch because I when I performed, like I have my friends that would be in the audience and they were very generous and I appreciated it very much. And then going to a different country and not having my friends in the audience, it's one of those like, oh, well, I know exactly where I am in in the world and I am nobody.
What were you there? Were you performing? Was it IDKE?
Yeah, it was IDKE 9, and the Renegades were there as performers, but also because we were going to be the host city next year, so
Yeah,
they wanted us there to get involved.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think that I didn't go to that one, but I think that I might have been in school or something. Like
okay.
I feel like it wasn't really an option for me to go.
You and I traveled together. I don't know if one was we were the Renegades. That was at Great Big Six in Washington, DC, and
Yeah.
I
Is that
had
when we did Coin Operated Boy?
yeah, yeah.
Coin
And I had only been
Operated.
with the Renegades for like 2 months, and you sent out an email, "Who wants to go to DC?" And I was like, "Yes, I wanna travel 6 hours with people I don't know. Yes, that sounds like so much fun." And
I
then
remember this. You were so worried.
yeah, yeah. I thought like, "Oh my god, they're going to hate me, and they're gonna be so mean to me." And I remember because we all drove together, like, we had all of us piled in, like, 3 different cars, and I didn't take my car, and I was like, "I'm just going to have enough money to where if I need to fly home by myself, I'll be able to." And it was
Yeah.
such the opposite. You guys were so amazing and so nice and, like, formed lifelong friendships, and yeah, so I was worried for nothing.
Yeah,
But then
that was an amazing that was an amazing trip. That was when Cody proposed to Amy on stage.
I d
Cody Las Vegas did
yes, yes.
because he came to the door the next day and you're like, Gavin, Flashdance is here. Because you couldn't remember his name, but you remember the number he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
I
goodness.
hope they're together and everything's
They
great.
are together.
That's amazing.
They live outside of St. Louis, and I actually found them an agent to help them buy a house a couple years ago. And so they have a
Okay.
house there. Um and I was in St. Louis last year and we were gonna have dinner, but they ended up getting sick and we were like,
Mm,
I can't risk it. One
yeah.
person, well, I think ended up getting COVID.
Oh, no. That's
So
awful.
yeah.
Yeah. And we also traveled as a troupe to Chicago. I can't remember what the show was for. It might have been a benefit show, maybe.
Was
And
it at the Empty Bottle?
um I don't remember the bar's name, but you and Heidi did Lunch Lady, Adam Sandler's Lunch Lady. So whatever show that was, and then I did a Guns N' Roses number.
It was a benefit show for a group that was called Sorted Collective,
Right,
and
right.
they were getting ready to do a European tour. And so we went to help them raise money for
Mhm.
this particular tour. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, like, we weren't paid or anything since it was a benefit show. Everything was, like, out of pocket. If you wanna go, it's out of pocket. And,
Yeah.
like, stuff like that, like, I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, no, if I'm not being paid, I'm not going." To hell with that, like, we had a great time, whether it was on our own dime or not, like, it was fabulous.
Yeah, I think that one of the best things about living in Columbus and forging those friendships with
Mhm.
other performers and other groups that almost all of the major cities were like within 6 hours, which is a really great road trip. It's like right, it's the point right before you get sick of being in the car, right?
Right,
It's
right.
like, oh, we can stop a few times, get gas, get a snack, get, do this, and nobody's sick of each other yet. And so like DC was 6 hours, Chicago was 6 hours, New York was 6 hours,
Mhm.
and everywhere in between. And it was just really nice to develop those friendships and be able to do those performances and be invited to places that,
Mhm.
because I mean, some of the places we've got to perform, it takes people years to build up those relationships in those cities to get to
Right.
perform at like the 9:30 Club, or
Yeah.
the places we performed at in Chicago and different places. So it's like pretty wild, when you think about it, when you
Yeah.
think about all the places we performed.
I was so thankful to be able to perform at the Great Big Six because the stage that we were on was also the same stage that my favorite band at the time had also performed on. And I was like, "Oh my god, I'm at their level now. We've performed on the same stage."
Yeah, yeah. Are they still your favorite band?
They are not, sadly.
Is it their politics?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we won't mention their names.
yeah, it's very difficult to say that I stand with my Black friends and I support you, and then listen to people who do not share those views. So it
Yeah,
just felt very hypocritical, and so I had to cut ties.
yeah. On to the next one.
I know, basically. So, what have you learned about yourself because of drag?
I think one thing I've learned, especially from being a producer and performing, is that I'm a lot more level-headed than I think that I was as a kid. Like, I thought I was a really volatile kid,
Mhm.
and I feel like I was a pretty diplomatic person in a lot of ways when producing and performing in shows.
Mhm.
And I feel like, especially like surrounding myself with folks like you and Laura and other people that would be performing in the shows, that there were moments that things could get escalated, but we kind of de-escalated them quickly. And I think
Mhm.
learning how to navigate a lot of strong-headed, artistic people
Yes.
in, sometimes we would have like 25 to 50 performers. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of kittens to wrangle,
A lot of
right?
egos.
A lot of egos, a
Mhm.
lot of opinions, a lot of things. And um I think one of the things I'm most proud of is being fair and being level-headed in a lot of the situations that w- had arisen, or even, just being able to navigate through difficult conversations with performers that were friends of mine that,
Mhm.
did things that were not
Yeah,
appropriate,
right.
right?
Yeah, you definitely learn who you are when you are producing a show, when you are running a troupe. I was able to step into a leadership position with the Rail Renegades only because you stepped down to focus on Dangerous Productions. And it was heartbreaking for me to see that happen because I looked up to you so much and I still do look up to you so much. But when I was in a leadership role, I was in my early 20s navigating that and trying to deal with so many like personalities and also learning my own personality that I really depended on watching you and how you handled things.
I really appreciate that. Because, and we have our opinions about ourselves, and we
Mhm.
have our opinions of what we think other people think, and we don't know what they think unless they actually tell us, right?
Right, right.
So one of my favorite quotes is, "It's none of my business what you think about me,"
Mhm.
because I could speculate all day long, but unless someone actually tells you, you don't really know, right?
Right.
Um, it was it was one leaving the Renegades and starting Dangerous Productions, while it was one of the best decisions I have ever made as a performer. It
Mhm.
was one of the hardest things to do. I put so much time and energy and blood, sweat, and tears into producing shows with and for the Renegades that it was a really difficult time.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I'm glad that we've remained friends, and I'm glad that, I still have some friends from the troupe, and that it didn't totally implode within our city, right? I know that
Right. Right.
it was a very tumultuous time in a lot of aspects. Again, with a lot of opinionated, artistic, creative folks,
Mhm.
in a in a certain spaces and only so many venues to do it. So there was a lot of things that could have gone awry that I think in the end worked out the way that it was supposed to, and uh I think it was still beneficial for
Mhm.
both groups, right?
Right. What are you grateful for because of drag?
I think the people that I've met,
Yeah.
the places I've gotten to perform, the the performers I've helped get into it, like
Yeah.
when I see some folks that I, you know, had given workshops to way back when they were just a baby performer, right? And
Mhm.
like now seeing them, like knowing that I had a little part in that or helped them along in any way. Because I think one of my purposes in life is to
Mhm.
share knowledge and to educate people on whatever that is. So like drag, and especially like when I've been in roles where I've been helping people
Mhm.
figure out what that is, whether I've been doing workshops or they've been folks performers that were invited into a dangerous production or something like that. So I think that sharing the knowledge, having touched people's lives in a positive way,
Mhm.
um, all the people that I've met, I mean, when I look at, you know, I'm not on social media as much as I used to be, but like when I look at my friend list, there's only a handful of people that I haven't met in person.
Right.
There's a few people that I've met or like have only met online. I was like, oh, I'm a friend of a friend that, I see you at shows and I really, like your performances, whatever.
Mhm.
But for by and large, I would say I have met and and am actually friends with most of the people in my friend list.
Yeah.
And that is a direct correlation of performing. Not,
Mhm.
I mean, I am an extrovert and I could make friends pretty much anywhere, but I would say the the um the opportunities that I've been given because of performing and because of producing shows has led me down the path to meeting all of these wonderful people.
Do you feel that drag kings and drag queens are treated equally or seen equally in mainstream media or even in the community itself?
Nope. I have been doing this for since 2001, so 13
23,
years,
yeah. Yeah.
right? 23 years. Uh math, 23 years. You know who else started in 2001?
Nina?
Nina West.
Uh-huh.
We both started performing, and not that I'm comparing myself to her by any
Right.
means. She's on a level, she's in her own atmosphere, right?
Mhm.
But even sorry. Um even though we've been having this conversation for decades about kings and people other than drag queens don't get enough airtime.
Yeah.
Like you never hear in a city, oh, that's too many drag queen shows. Nobody's gonna go.
Mhm.
Nobody's gonna go to them. There's any night here in Philadelphia, any night of the week, you can go see a drag queen somewhere.
Yeah.
But still there's, there's 30 kings here and there's not hardly any shows, or you're the token king in a show,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you see that on any of the reality shows. You know,
Yeah.
RuPaul would rather have a cis woman being a drag queen than having drag kings on there, because I don't think that they believe that it is a valid form of art.
Yeah.
Um, and there's just a level of leeway that is given to queens that is just not afforded to kings.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that will ever change. Um, it's been a conversation I've been having with people since I started performing.
Yeah.
And I have
Yeah.
seen very, very little change about it.
Yeah.
What I think people tend to do is just get into figure out their niches where they can fit into a show, or produce their own shows and have their own thing. But I don't know if it'll ever be to the scale of Drag Race or
Right.
any level of those types of things. Now, are there performers that have elevated and made it to that level? Yeah, but they're few and far between.
Hmm.
It's like they're one-offs, like Murray Hill, who's on TV and movies and
Yeah.
things. They've been performing since before me. Um, there's Landon Sider,
Hmm.
who won that alternative show to as an alternative to Drag Race. Um, they're just like in a whole nother level by themselves, right? And
Right.
those are so few and far between that it's not, just doesn't get the same airplay. And I honestly don't know if it ever will. I
Hmm.
mean, we'd have to fundamentally change the patriarchy. And I just don't know if we can do that as a society.
How different would your life be if you'd never done drag?
I feel like there would be a lot less joy.
Yeah.
I feel there's a level of joy that performing has brought me that I don't um I don't really experience in a whole lot of other places. So I I don't know. It's weird because I would like to think that I would be doing something else equally as cool that would have taken me to all these wonderful places and met all these wonderful people, but you never know. I
Right.
mean, I just don't know. I don't know what it would be like. What would you be like if you had never done drag?
Um, I I would not be here today. I mean, I'm not saying like I would be dead or anything. I might, because I was making unhealthy choices just because I was so like sad and just didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. But doing drag led to me getting involved in theater, which led to me getting involved in making horror films, and that's my entire existence. That's what I love. So yeah, I would not be a happy person, I don't think, because like you
Yeah.
said, there just isn't anything that I can think of that would bring me the same amount of joy as what drag led to.
Yeah. And it's just like so interesting to think about sort of the evolution of like how we got here. Like
Right.
how many years have you been performing?
I started in 2006, so
I was
18,
I
yeah.
was yeah, I was talking to Laura earlier. I was like, I have this book that I have over here so this little notebook right here
Mhm.
has every performance I've ever done written down and what venue it was. And I was like going back and I was like, I'm talking to Michelle later, and I was just like, I think it was around the end of 2005 or beginning of 2006.
Mhm.
I was like, because I was like, were they in the first coin operated boy that we did? Because I
Yeah.
was just like, we did it at Wall Street,
Uh-huh.
and then we took it to the Great Big, And I was just like, oh, it seems so long ago, but yet
Right.
it was like yesterday.
Yeah, I started the Renegades because I went to a meeting because the Renegade meetings were open to anyone, whoever wanted to
Yeah.
get on stage, like they had to pay their dues. They had to work like 3 shows or something like that before they can get on stage, but all meetings were open. And I went to a meeting and I put my name on the listserv and Beaker emailed me and she was like, "I think you would fit a dress that I want someone to wear for a number that I'm doing. Do you want to be in it?" And I was like, "Okay." And
Ah,
then that counted as one of the shows that I helped with before I could
yeah.
like have my own solo number, which I came to find out I hate doing solo numbers. So I could have just stayed doing group numbers and it would have been fine.
Group numbers are so much more entertaining, I feel, for all parties involved.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's just a level of, I think, audience enjoyment specifically because like you'll go to drag shows and stuff and you'll see like solo performer after solo
Yeah.
performer after, and they all just start to blend together. And
Hmm.
I'm like, yeah, I remember the song you did, but there was nothing. It was just a solo number, solo number, solo number,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
when there's some sort of dynamic component to it and more
Hmm.
players on the screen, so to speak,
Yeah.
there's something that is I think just more tangible and enjoyable for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's rare that you see a movie with only one person, you know.
That's
Castaway
true.
might have been the
That's true.
only one that I can recall, you know, or like that movie where she was floating out in space.
Hmm.
And I mean, we did some really awesome group numbers. And sometimes when I see performers now doing group numbers and they're like, I think that might be the most Kings I've ever seen on a stage. And I was just like, I have seen way more, my friend.
For IDKE 10, we had what, like 30 of us were on stage?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just threw away that hoodie. It finally fell apart.
Did it?
Yeah.
That's amazing. So do you have any advice for aspiring drag kings?
The advice that is often given here by myself and other folks is like you'll get someone who's like, how do I get into performing? And here, and I think now maybe the times have changed, right? So
Mhm.
there's not a ton of troops. A lot of people are solo artists, which I fully encourage. I think that there are benefits and negatives to being in a troupe.
Mhm.
There are benefits and negatives to being a solo performer. Um, but for me, one of the things I encourage people to do is to come to meetings when we have meetings, to go to shows and support other like-minded individuals and meet them, talk to them, get involved, do stage stuff for them if they need help.
Mhm.
You know, hang out with people, learn how to do it. Don't just like, not that YouTube or TikTok or videos, you know, Instagram, you can't find quality things to like how to put on makeup or how to bind or how to do these things, but like talk to people that have been doing it.
Thank you very much, Gavin, for just being who you are, teaching me everything that I know about drag, for being my friend.
Thank you for having me. This has been a pleasure, and I can't wait to see the other interviews you do.
Thank you for listening to Revisiting the Spotlight, and thank you to Boxland for giving underrepresented voices a platform to tell their stories. To learn more about Boxland and all the media services they provide,